So we're coming up on the DFINITY mainnet launch in Q4 this year. And with that, we're seeing a big influx of developers that are looking to build new types of applications that are unprecedented and not before possible on the DFINITY Internet Computer. And we're excited to announce that we're going to be investing in a lot of these entrepreneurs through the Beacon Fund, which is a fund managed by Polychain with $14.5 million with support from both the DFINITY Foundation as well as Andreessen Horowitz.
Yeah, and we're happy to be partnering with you on that.
And I think that the core thing is recognizing that because we're in such a new area with blockchains, these are actually new inventions. And when you think about big historical inventions, like say electricity, it's not like a faster candle, right?
Yeah.
It obviously led to all sorts of applications that nobody could have really conceived of at the moment of the invention. We're really excited not just to invest in things that are a little faster or a little cheaper, but really new types of applications that are sort of unprecedented. And what I mean by that is that DFINITY represents a massive technical breakthrough. New types of applications are going to be made possible that simply were not possible on any previous system. I think to me this is really similar to the step function change that Ethereum represented relative to Bitcoin. A lot of people, when Ethereum launched, thought about it as potentially threatening to Bitcoin, or that would this be a better Bitcoin or something like that. But that's really thinking in hindsight, right? It's thinking through the lens of the existing reality, which was all Bitcoin. What was actually exciting about Ethereum we know today is all the new types of applications that were uniquely made possible by Ethereum. These are things like multiple assets settling on one chain, things like stablecoins, and of course everything with DeFi, decentralized crowdfunding, trading, lending, all those sorts of things. What I'm excited about with DFINITY is not the fact that it might be able to implement existing applications faster and cheaper. It's rather what types of new, unprecedented applications are going to be uniquely enabled by the Internet Computer. And so when we're talking to entrepreneurs and investing out of the Beacon Fund, what we're very excited to do is find people who have a vision for new types of applications and platforms that are uniquely possible with the Internet Computer and are sort of unprecedented in that before we had major web marketplaces and web platforms, there wasn't like an analog version. So when Facebook was launched, when YouTube was launched, when Uber was launched, it's not like they were a faster or cheaper version of some previous application. They were really a completely new way of organizing people. And so in this case, I think that the launch of the Internet Computer is going to lead to substantive new ways to organize humans and capital. And I think that new applications are going to emerge that were not possible with sort of legacy technology that we have today. I think that the Internet Computer will lead to new types of applications that are very hard to think of.
Yeah.
I think an interesting anecdote is I once saw a video of Mark Andreessen. It was in 1995. He was in front of the audience talking about Netscape and talking about the internet. And he got a question from the audience, which was, what are some interesting websites on the internet? And he struggled so hard to find an answer. And he ended up saying that Tower Records put up a website, which is, this is the thing, is that the internet obviously changed everyone's lives and led to all these unprecedented applications. But even as the person who is the creator of one of the foundational elements of the modern internet, Mark Andreessen, it's very hard to reason about and predict all the various ways this open platform will be used. And so with the Beacon Fund, we're very excited to partner with those entrepreneurs early. One of the ways that I think about this is entrepreneurs are often extremely rewarded for taking an early bet in an ecosystem that ends up blowing up. So you can think about this in the context of developers that were very early to Ethereum. Many of the very early Ethereum applications got sort of a lead. They got the most liquidity, the most capital interest, and have been able to sustain a moat as the Ethereum ecosystem and platform has grown. But this goes way beyond blockchains. if you look even at just some of the early apps in the iOS App Store, by taking a bet on the iPhone and the App Store, many of those developers who built even just utility apps like the flashlight app or something like that were able to carve out a market share early, and because the underlying platform and ecosystem grew, they sort of had outsized macro tailwinds behind their business or behind their application. And so to me, we're looking for entrepreneurs to invest in that are willing to take this sort of bet on the internet computer architecture. And as we see an ecosystem of application developers emerge around the internet computer, there's going to be that macro tailwind effect, and disproportionate rewards will go to those who took risk early. You've seen this empirically on Ethereum. There are smart contracts that have become, managers of over $1 billion that were built by individual developers, like one person. So I think we are seeing kind of $1 billion of value be created by smaller and smaller and smaller teams. And this is the next logical abstraction, where it won't just be one person, it'll be like a teenager, or I don't know what the next step is. Once you're one person generating $1 billion of value, I don't know what the next step is. But I think that we're going to see many of these applications that reach immense scale that are the work of a very, very small team.
I would love to hear about some of the successful first movers you've seen in the space and why you're excited about first movers building on the internet computer.
Well, I think a lot of the successful first movers, for example, in Ethereum, took advantage of the new features in Ethereum to try to build something that wasn't possible before. So on Bitcoin, some of the really early applications were things like Satoshi Dice, which allowed you to sort of gamble double or nothing based on the next hash of the newest block and things like that. I think that Ethereum didn't try to build the successful entrepreneurs didn't try to build a cheaper, faster Satoshi Dice or something. They really started to build applications that were uniquely enabled by Ethereum. I think some of the early applications there were tokens that bootstrapped on top of the Ethereum security mechanism, without having to generate that security themselves, and decentralized crowdfunding to initially distribute the token as well as raise a capital pool that could be managed by those token holders. I do think that the people who were the most successful were building for a long-term future. A lot of projects on Ethereum kind of fizzled out because they ran with the hype a little bit. But people who really were focused from the early days on delivering a meaningful product, I think, have seen substantial success. So these are groups like, for example, MakerDAO. The MakerDAO project was one of the first applications on Ethereum. Today, it's one of the largest smart contracts by capital managed in the entire Ethereum ecosystem. People like to say you have to be smarter or you can be first. And I think being first is often easier. Just being the first team to build a certain type of application in a new ecosystem or using a new piece of technology can be one of the very positive macro tailwinds for building a successful business. This is very similar to early application developers for the iOS, iPhone, and that got into the Apple App Store, even with relatively simple apps, have seen great success simply because they were first and sort of planted the flag there. So I think as an entrepreneur, taking a risk on a new protocol or platform can be a really legitimate strategy to building a successful business.
And would love to touch on any of the investments that you've made so far, and maybe just one example and why.
So the first investment that we made out of the Beacon Fund in 2018 was Compound Finance. And so we had a lot of conviction around Robert Leshner as the founder of the Compound system. And he had an incredible vision for how to start off as sort of a centralized business that would deploy a smart contract system with a very narrow but extremely scalable model, which was just a borrow and lending marketplace on Ethereum.
Simple.
Very simple, but very well executed. And then over time, actually decentralize ownership such that this would become sort of public infrastructure managed by the community. And I think that every step of the way, the execution has been stellar. And we couldn't be happier to have him be sort of the first person that we invested in out of the Beacon Fund.
Would love to hear a little bit about your process. So I'm an entrepreneur. I've read through the documentation, I understand the benefits of the internet computer, and I'm able to grok what it means to build on an open, non-proprietary platform, and I get in touch with Beacon. What can I expect?
We're in general going to just want to jam with you on the ideas you have for what you're building and how it works. We have a very, very technical research team that's capable of definitely going toe-to-toe, with any entrepreneur building something, no matter how complex it may be. I think in general, we're going to be looking for people that have a lot of grit and a lot of vision and are ready to build something very big. And again, kind of natively understand what it means to build in this kind of Web3 open context. As far as the process, in general, it's going to be a conversation with someone from our research team. Then it's going to be a full team pitch to our entire investment team. And then we're going to follow up with any additional questions we might have, and then we're going to decide to invest or not. We like to move very quickly with our investment process. And once we do make an investment, we like to partner very closely and make sure that any entrepreneur we're working with has identified like the one bottleneck that may dramatically limit their ability to succeed, and also the one catalyst that is going to 10x the size of what they're building. And that they relentlessly focus on breaking down the bottleneck and executing that catalyst. So to me, it's it's not that the relationship ends with an investment. That's actually really where it begins, and we hopefully can work with entrepreneurs for many years as they continue to expand what they're building in this whole new ecosystem.
Got it. In terms of entrepreneurs that are early, may have a prototype in market, haven't raised any money yet, what do you think they can expect to raise?
In general, as an entrepreneur, you want to go as far as you can with the resources you have, because you will get better value for your equity.
Yeah.
And this is true after you raise a fundraising round. You want to take that capital as far as you can to build what you have as big as you can before you raise new capital. So in general, that applies before you've raised any venture capital as well. The more progress you can make before you go out and raise venture capital, the better valuation you're going to get.
Yeah.
But I think in general, these types of businesses that are built on top of open platforms are not very capital intensive. I think the biggest costs are sort of security and infrastructure engineers that are going to actually write all of the application logic, as well as security audits to make sure that the canister you're deploying is going to work as intended. But net, what that means is a very lightweight software business. There's not a lot of heavy assets or big capital investment that needs to be made the way that if you're starting a big hardware company or you want to manufacture cars or something, there's going to be a lot of capital needed. So in general, I would recommend staying lean, and I think a reasonable seed round when you're sort of pre-product and you're just an idea and a founding team is usually about $500,000, maybe as much as $1 or $1.5 million. But I think raising more than that is usually not necessary, and you're probably just selling more of the business than you really should.
Yeah.
Because you're going to determine whether you have product market fit with that $1 million.
Yeah.
And if you can't, then there's an execution problem, or you're building something that there really isn't a market for.
Yeah.
So the goal of a seed round to me is to ship something and figure out if there's product market fit. If there is product market fit, it's time to put fuel on the fire and raise growth capital, right? And a kind of Series A type growth round. But you just want to raise enough that you can find out whether your product has product market fit or not.
Yeah.
Okay, so Artia, how should entrepreneurs who want to get in touch with Beacon, how should they do it?
In addition to getting in touch directly with the Polychain team or with the DFINITY team, there's also a way for entrepreneurs to apply on DFINITY.org. So there is an application process. There is a page with some information on the Beacon Fund. So the application will ask for basics like just founding team information, whether you have a deck, but most importantly, whether you have a prototype in market, or even better, a minimum viable product in market that you're able to get some feedback from customers or users. So So the two ways to apply are get in touch with our teams or check out the application on DFINITY.org.
Yeah, I think entrepreneurs should just get in touch any way they can with anyone really at DFINITY or Polychain, and we'll make sure that it gets seen by the right person. I mean, we're going to be very actively looking for entrepreneurs over the next 12, 24 months, especially who are looking to build kind of novel applications in this area. What's very exciting when you have a new open protocol system that entrepreneurs are building on is you have this sort of grassroots collective imagination about what the future could be. And it's sort of like the early internet or like early Bitcoin, early Ethereum, whereby you have a lot of dreamers kind of working through the idea maze and trying to figure out what really is possible and where there really will be substantial pull from the market for these new types of applications that are sort of unprecedented and uniquely made possible by the characteristics of this new platform or protocol. And so to me, everything that's happening with DFINITY and the ecosystem around it is just really exciting to be a part of. And for me, kind of helping catalyze entrepreneurs' dreams and make it a reality is what gets me so excited about everything we're doing at Polychain and with the Beacon Fund.